Hey there, this is Dr. Justin Marchegiani. I actually just recorded a podcast today on mood disorders. So if you want to get more information about this video topic, check out beyondwellnessradio.com and subscribe to get all the show updates. So I'm going to give you kind of a sneak peek of what we talked about. So neurotransmitters are these chemical compounds that affect how we feel in our mood and how it affects our mood. So we're going to talk about neurotransmitters. We're going to talk about what they do. We're going to talk about how they work in our brain and what we can do to help improve our mood naturally. So first off, neurotransmitters are like these little chemical messengers. They sit in between the post and presynaptic cleft, and they basically help jump the action potential or the connection from the presynaptic neuron to the postsynaptic neuron. So really quick here. Take your left fist here, put it like this. Take your right fist here, put it like this. This is like your presynaptic neuron. This is like your postsynaptic neuron. And we have action potential coming through the presynaptic neuron, and it has to jump this cleft or this space here. That's called the presynaptic cleft or the synaptic cleft. And that space is right here. And it has to jump that. And it does so with neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, etc. So we have to have these chemicals in between this gap. So I'm going to take this area right here and I'm going to blow it up so you can see it a little better. So for instance, in between the pre and postsynaptic neuron, this is the synaptic cleft, we're going to have serotonin and dopamine. You can see that by the S and the D. And these neurotransmitters are going to have an effect on our mood. Serotonin is going to allow us to feel a little more happy. Dopamine gives us that sense of love and that feeling of focus. Norepinephrine will give us that jitteriness. So we have various neurochemicals that go right in between there that have an effect. Now, how most medications work, for instance, we have our SSRI family of medication. These are our selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So they work more on serotonin. They block this reuptake port, just like so. And they prevent the uptake of serotonin. So what happens is this, serotonin comes up, it tries to get in there, but it can't. And so over time, we actually start seeing more serotonin hang out. And same thing with our dopamine. Imagine we have dopamine reuptake ports as well. That's like kind of how Wellbutrin works. And dopamine would typically go up like this and get recycled, but when we're on the medications, that's going to knock out that reuptake port and again allow more dopamine to hang out between the pre and postsynaptic neuron. Now that's all well and good in the short term. The problem is these medications, they're only really doing one thing. That is they're changing the location of the neurotransmitters. The problem with that is the longer we have our neurotransmitters stay in between the post and pre in that synaptic cleft, like I mentioned, the ability at which these neurochemicals break down actually goes up. So over time, what we'll start to see is more and more of these neurochemicals drop. And then over time, we're actually going to have less and less neurochemicals in between the synaptic cleft. That's why most people that are on these medications actually have to have them increased over time because of this side effect. Now, in functional medicine world, and don't get me wrong, these medications may be appropriate if you're seeing a psychiatrist and there's a reason why you want to be on that, maybe to prevent suicidal tendencies. But in the long run, these medications are terrible because of the side effects mentioned here. Now, I'm not saying to go off a medication. Talk to your prescribing physician, and if you do decide to go off, you want to make sure you are going off under their supervision. But again, the mechanism just doesn't make sense in the long run because it's all about changing location. Now, in natural medicine, we actually want to give the precursors to actually provide an increase in supply. So the functional medicine model is increase neurotransmitters, not by changing the location, but by increasing amount. And we do that by facilitating extra 5-HTP or extra L-tyrosine, which then crosses the blood-brain barrier and actually gets converted in the brain to serotonin, in the brain to dopamine. Serotonin and dopamine cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, but the precursors can. And once they cross that barrier, they can get converted into these neurochemicals like so. So instead of blocking these reuptake ports, we don't actually have to do that, but we can do it naturally by giving more of these precursors, and we can see a significant increase in the amount. But everyone's a little bit different. We can also do it with herbs too, and we can also do it with addressing hormones as well. So some people's presynaptic, postsynaptic neuronal dysfunction is because of hormones or stress or blood sugar or diets or lifestyle or sleep. So you really want to address all of the core foundational principles: diet, sleep, blood sugar, hormones, gut. All of those things are important, because if we're eating a whole bunch of good protein, because remember, all protein, all neurotransmitters are from amino acids, which are from protein, right? Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So if you have low protein, it's possible you could have depression and mood issues. So you want to make sure you're breaking down protein, you're absorbing protein, your gut's working well, you're sleeping well, you're stabilizing blood sugar. That's first and foremost before we get into any of these deeper protocols to really work on brain balancing. Now, most people, when they have brain issues, their diet stinks. And the reason why their diet stinks is because they're trying to use refined carbohydrates and sugar to boost their neurochemicals. So let's break that down here. So refined carbs increase insulin levels, right? Insulin's a storage hormone. It will bring sugar and get it converted into fat. It'll also shuttle amino acids into the muscles and into the cells. So you can see with higher insulin, we're going to shuttle all other amino acids into the muscles and into the cells, while the remaining 5-HTP gets flooded into the brain. That 5-HTP and L-tyrosine cross the blood-brain barrier and get converted into dopamine and serotonin, which allow us to feel super good and give us that feeling of love. People say, well, I emotionally eat. Why? Well, you're not really emotionally eating. You're eating so you get a spike of dopamine that gives you that feeling of love. So you are in a sense, but really you're eating that way to spike up your dopamine level so you feel that good emotional rush. So that's what's happening. We're using high amounts of insulin to flood amino acids to the brain, while the other amino acids are going to the muscles and cells. So we have a disparity. We have a high amount of serotonin and dopamine going to areas of the brain that give us that boost. That's why in a study 2 years ago, when rats had a choice between Oreo cookies and cocaine, they actually chose Oreo cookies over the cocaine. That's actually an interesting study. And they found that the cocaine and the sugar actually lit up the same areas of the brain, which is really interesting. So treatment-wise, always deal with the foundational principles. If you're one of those people that have already dealt with the principles and now you want to go deeper, well, the next step would be to use 5-HTP and L-tyrosine. And typically, we want to use those at a 10-to-1 level starting off. So my starting program with most patients would be 300 milligrams of 5-HTP, while we give 3,000 milligrams of L-tyrosine. That's a good starting protocol. The reason why you don't want to be on one amino acid by itself is because the amino acid decarboxylase enzyme, that's the enzyme that breaks down both 5-HTP and L-tyrosine. If we're increasing L-tyrosine and we're not giving any 5-HTP, we're increasing that enzyme activity, and over time, with the higher amount of 5-HTP and the lesser amount of L-tyrosine, we're going to be breaking down L-tyrosine faster than we're breaking down 5-HTP because we're supporting it. So we create imbalances by upregulating the enzymes and not giving both at the same time. So long-term amino acid support, you want to be giving both 5-HTP and L-tyrosine, and you also want to be giving, in the long run, sulfur-based amino acids, either SAMe, L-methionine, or cysteine. You can go anywhere between 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams of SAMe, cysteine, or L-methionine. And basically what's happening is norepinephrine gets converted to epinephrine and it needs sulfur-based amino acids. So we need the sulfur there for healthy dopamine function as well. So this is a really good set there, and I'd also recommend the 2,000 to 4,000 milligrams of sulfur amino acids. I actually just did an organic acid test on myself, and in the organic acid test, it's an indirect test at neurotransmitter function, but they have homovanillate or vandomanillate, various different organic acids that convert to neurotransmitters in the brain. The homovanillate and the vandomandillate markers here, and I'll put those test markers in the test so you can see it. I had those markers low on my test. And when I improved my neurotransmitter function by boosting up some of these aminos, I felt a significant improvement in my ability to focus and to perform throughout the day. So this can be very helpful, and it may not work for everyone because you actually have to have a deficiency in that area. And there's no way to really test it. There's maybe one test out there that really looks at it directly, but the organic acid test is a great indirect measurement. So treatment would be the amino acids off the bat, and then you can also do different things to address hormones and use various herbs such as rhodiola, and ashwagandha is another great one, and you can use progesterone, and a lot of women can make a big difference at helping with neurotransmitter function. But right now, I just keep the focus on using the amino acids. And if you have a deeper issue and you want to get your mood back on track, we have to go to the basics of getting the gut working, getting the adrenals working. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper and getting these issues addressed at the root level, feel free and reach out and grab my info below the video. Thanks, this is Dr. Justin signing off.